Andrew. Thank you for joining me this morning, Monday morning, for Coffee with Climate Leaders.
All right. Well, hey, Amy, how are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm here in Los Angeles, California, and you're in Davis, California.
I'm at my home in Davis.
The last time I saw you was actually in Spain, in Madrid at the COP25 in December of last year. And you were there as part of the California delegation representing the California Energy Commission. You're a commissioner and your specialty is on energy efficiency and forecasting. It was great to have you there. Spent a lot of time transiting back and forth to the convention center and being on panels with you.
Right. Well, kudos to you all for putting that together in a great delegation and across all the states. You know, California brought a significant delegation, but I think just having that broad state level participation is invaluable to inform the regional level discussion, which it really is. As you know, I mean, the regions, the subnational jurisdictions really are where action takes place. And I think much of the creative thought takes place that's going to solve all the challenges related to climate change that are upon us and coming.
Thank you. It was wonderful to have you there and the rest of the subnationals from across the U.S. So one thing is I really am interested in knowing what the Commission is doing, what the state of California is doing in terms of thinking about advancing energy efficiency, grid resiliency in the state of California as part of their post-COVID economic recovery plans.
I've been incredibly impressed at the state level within my agency, the California Energy Commission, certainly, but across the board, really, starting with the governor, how nimble the state has been in pivoting towards getting work done and continuing the work on climate and all the other fronts, addressing the COVID challenge itself, while social distancing and obeying all of the new norms that we need to protect our collective health. So I think that has been actually really heartening because it shows the pathways forward for how to get work done and still protect our community health. You know, self-care and community care really go hand in hand at this point. And that's a lesson I think we kind of needed to learn. It's actually very relevant for the climate discussion, right? Because if we focus on our individual and small group and local actions, that really is the equivalent. That underpins our community and our global health. So I think it's very relevant, actually, and instructive.
And so I'm interested in knowing, you are also the chair of the board for the NASCIO, the National Association of State Energy Officials. So you work with state officials across the country. And I'm also interested in knowing, what's going on in California and making sure that those activities that you're seeing that are providing health and environmental benefits can continue post-COVID, and what are the opportunities and challenges for other states to be rowing in that same direction?
Yeah, so certainly in Madrid, I was, as a representative of the fifth largest economy in the world, under some demand to meet with lots of different jurisdictions, both national and subnational and nonprofit, across the board. And both as a California state official, but also representing the other states through NASCIO. And so people do look to California, and I think, largely rightly so, as an innovator in this area. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We have a lot of people, a lot of high-level professionals, a lot of local jurisdictions who are very innovative, and because, we've talked about sort of, the national, subnational, but really local is also a key level here. Many of the most innovative policies happen at the city and county level, at the city level usually, or even the neighborhood level and then the city level. And so I think the states perform a really valuable service to mediate between the federal and the local. And, we're now obviously talking a lot about the stimulus, and all of the states are interested in ramping up the state energy program, the weatherization assistance program, the block grant programs. And those could swallow a lot of resources and channel them to incredible good. And channel them to projects, that both shovel-ready projects, but also the kind of workforce development and the things that really will restart our economy post-COVID. And in California, I could go into immense detail about all the things we're doing in terms of the building code and grid flexibility, demand management. I think that's a big piece of where we need to go. In the 21st century, we have a lot of technology at our disposal. We're in the data era. We're in the digitized era. And so, we're all surrounded by data flowing all the time. Well, that can be used to manage the grid in real time so that renewables are used and utilized optimally when they're available, solar in the middle of the day, when the wind is blowing, and dispatch those resources that are low and no carbon when they're available, and then not utilize the fossil resources to the extent possible when that's all that's available. And so this grid flexibility investment that we need to make is a place where California is really leading, and we have a whole bunch of initiatives that are all tied together to push the grid in that direction. And so again, as we deal with the impacts of climate change, fire resilience, we have a lot of rural areas, we need to really make sure that we're taking care of service quality. At the same time, those investments can leverage our technology and make sure the grid decarbonizes over time. So security and resilience and decarbonization are all part and parcel of the same thing. So our policies really revolve around this idea. As we incorporate electrified transportation in, it's going to play a role in that whole ecosystem. And again, having the tools at each building, at each neighborhood, at each city, each utility, across the state to the independent system operator who dispatches the wholesale resources, those coordinations need to happen up and down the chain, from the largest scale down to the device, really down to the appliance level. And so that's the vision that we have in California, and it really has traction. You're not going to be able to decarbonize if you don't sort of put in place both local distribution level, building level technologies, and link those in a very functional way all the way up to where the dispatch and the investment decisions are made at the grid level. We're hitting the milestones, the near-term milestones for decarbonization in California. We're often, for minutes, hours, days, even weeks sometimes, we're at very high levels of renewables and decarbonization. I mean, we've hit intervals where we're 100% renewable. We've hit weeks and months where we're over 60% renewable. But as you push that further, the tools you need become more sophisticated. And so this dispatching of resources and momentary management of the grid becomes really critical to making it all work. So that message is resonating now with more and more states. But I think the states, all the states, 50 states, 6 territories, all of us have programs that we can channel resources in to improve the lives of our citizens, our residents, and really address the equity issues, do low-income weatherization, really target the vulnerable populations. There are all these parallel trains running down the tracks, and they need to talk to each other. It's a big switchyard now. There's a lot of activity, and so we have to make sure that those trains run the way they should, and that they coordinate and they play basically by the same rules. And that's how we're going to get our whole population across the finish line, is by carrying them all. Right. And if we miss the 35% of our population that's low income, then we will have failed. And so that's just not an option.
Right. And I think these are all lessons that we've learned from trying to cope and deal with the COVID pandemic as a community, and having all these sectors talk to each other in order to really combat that. And that's what's going to have to happen with climate. That message of hope that you're providing and a look at the future is very helpful and very positive. So I look forward to keep working with you to advance that cause. And I want to thank you for talking with me this morning, and also giving a shout out to all the doctors and nurses and healthcare workers, frontline workers and their families, and the people stocking the grocery store, and also all the utility workers that are making sure that we do have the electricity, the power to keep our work going during this time. And they are often out there in the community as well, working and putting their lives in front of this for our benefit. So I do want to thank them.
Absolutely.
As well.
Can I make one more point?
Yes, please do.
Yes. So certainly want to echo all of the thanks to the professionals that are out there really risking their lives. I mean, this thing it's a formidable virus. I mean, and anybody who's vulnerable with pulmonary issues really has cause for a serious concern. People still need to protect themselves, and I think certainly at the state level, our governor is very zeroed in on that fact. I wanted to talk about jobs because the U.S. Energy and Employment Report came out a couple months ago. It's been done in the nonprofit sector since DOE stopped doing it after the change in administration. So the U.S. Energy and Employment Report is now 5 years old. It's got a nice longitudinal data set about what energy employment, what the jobs related to the energy sector actually look like in the U.S. This year, we've actually in California funded a specific California kind of deep dive, and that'll be coming out here in a couple weeks. But nationwide, there are 6.5 million jobs in the energy sector, and around half of those are in the clean energy sector. And those are increasingly looking like high-tech jobs. A lot of them look like construction jobs, energy efficiency, buildings, changing out HVAC systems, things like that. That's the bulk of them still. But there is a structural shift over to this smart grid idea and installing technologies and working with systems and really integrating large data sets to make better decisions and manage the grid. And so as we come out of COVID, we've shed a lot of jobs, including in this sector. What is now the clean energy sector as, say, 2%, a little over 2% of the jobs in the country. Okay, that's a lot of jobs. Why can't we double, triple, quadruple that? Get to 10 million jobs. I've heard Vice President Biden talk about 10 million jobs in the clean energy sector, and that is doable. And these are jobs that you can't export. They are touching buildings, they're touching equipment. It goes all the way back to manufacturing, design, architecture, all of the skills and the trades, the installation. I mean, it's a huge deal, quality installation. If you think about just what that would look like, it's pretty compelling. You would have qualified workers, tradespeople coming to homes and businesses to retrofit, upgrade, make them more comfortable, make them more healthy, and really produce long-term quality of life improvement in our built environment, which is where we spend the vast majority of our time. And it has all of these decarbonization impacts as well. So there's really, why wouldn't we invest in that as a country to strengthen ourselves, both in the near term and the long term, as we come out of this pandemic? And it makes all the sense in the world. So as we're talking about these multi-trillion-dollar stimulus packages, that's really what we in California and the states across the country are focused on, is really trying to get more funding through the state energy program into R&D in a collaborative way with the states, and the weatherization assistance program, and all of these programs that are in place and can channel large quantities of resources effectively. We in California, we have that program infrastructure and could really utilize those resources for good in a big handshake with the federal government. So anyway, that I think is really what I see as the most compelling part of the path forward as we come out of COVID, is everybody has the potential to both have a job and to benefit from these technologies that are going to decarbonize our society.
Absolutely. And I think everybody has newfound appreciation for the health of their home and the environment as well. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
In Glasgow or wherever we happen to be.
Right.
Thank you very much, Amy. Thanks for all you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.